Hello, and thank you for coming to our Advanced Features webinar to go through BillTrack50 and look at all of the little bits and bobs you might not have noticed already. I am Karen with BillTrack50, and I've got Michael on the line. Say hello, Michael.
Hello,
All right. What do you do, Michael? Who are you?
I'm Michael O'Brien, and I help out on business development for BillTrack50, and I also do a lot of the help with queries and answering questions about process, legislative process, and other state legislation questions.
This is all true, often from me. So Michael's the wonk, and that's where we go for legislation questions. I'm the geek. If you have any how the site works or how to set up like the technical parts, then that's me. All right, so to start with, I want to talk about some advanced query techniques that we have sort of learned over the years work pretty well. So, and then we'll talk about actually writing a query. But from a perspective of just how to organize your account, hopefully you can see my screen. And I've got my different bill sheets set up here. So one strategy you can take is that you write a broad query that's definitely going to catch everything you want plus lots too much. And we have some clients who even just put the name of their state in and look at every single bill that gets introduced to decide if it matters to them. We call that the feeder sheet approach because you've got just one big fat sheet giving you a fire hose feeding you all of the bills. Then you can use the plus. Let me get into a bill sheet. Then you can use the plus to actually pick which bills you want to track and put those onto a hot list. And that way you know you'll never ever miss anything. However, for some topics, or depending what states you're following, that might not be practical. You can also use another strategy that I've kind of developed over the summer with a few customers who have really complicated things they follow. And I'm calling that the duck on a pond strategy. That is, instead of one big broad sheet sending you too many bills, you make a whole bunch of little narrow sheets. So instead of just saying tax or water and making sure you're going to get every single thing that has to do with your topic, you write very narrow little queries, but you write lots of them. And that way you can take advantage of phrases, you can take advantage of the near, and you go ahead and just write 10 or 20 different bill sheets, very narrow, and they might all come back with just a few bills or maybe no bills. And for those sheets, you would set up your alerts to just send you an alert when there's a new bill, and then you go review the bill and decide if it should get added again into a larger hot list. And then you can keep a couple different topics, a couple different hot lists, or you can roll it all up into one. It depends on how many you anticipate needing and if you want to share them with different people or if you're just sharing them with yourself. So if you're only keeping yourself informed, then you just roll them all up into one big sheet. And again, you would just be plucking them off using the plus. Or, of course, if you click on it from your email and you decide you want it, you can use this track this bill button, which will also let you just add it to your hot list. I call that the duck on a pond because you've got 20 or 30 bill sheets paddling furiously under the water, but it's just floating up one or two gentle bills into your hot list so that you're only getting full bill alerts like action alerts and stuff on the few bills that have floated to the top. So that also seems to be a fairly valid strategy. So either overshoot and do one or two really broad sheets, including even doing the whole state, or you could do like a zillion little narrow sheets. And that's if you have a really complicated topic where just a few phrases isn't going to cut it. Michael, have you used either of those strategies or have you discovered any new ones?
I use both, depending on the client and their needs. It really comes down to one, what's your level of sophistication in knowing what it is you're searching for, and how important is it if you miss something, and how you like to work. Some people find it difficult to work off 20 different bill sheets and prefer to read a lot of bills and just delete the ones that don't apply. So it depends on your work style and your level of knowledge with legislation. But they're both valid. They both work, and I've used them both.
Okay. So those are some general organizational ideas. If you're lucky enough that you're just doing, say, marijuana, and you can write a simple query with just a few words, count yourself as lucky. Okay, so now I've gone into an actual bill sheet so that we can look at some specifics about how to use the query itself. So I want to highlight right now, I'm going to take criminal history record as our example here and put it into the contains all. So criminal history record, this is a phrase. It may or may not be an exact phrase. It may not be a technical phrase that criminal justice always uses, or employment, or whatever it is you're trying to look for. So if you put quotes around it, you're only going to get bills that say criminal history record in that order, exactly those words, which could be exactly what you want when you do have a specific phrase, say minimum wage. However, it could be that it might be the bill might say criminal history or background record. So it might have a few other words in there, or it could be record of criminal history, so it might be in a different order. So if you're not sure it's going to be exactly this phrase, you can take off the quotes and change it to near. And then that way you'll only get these words if they're pretty much in the same sentence or in the same section, so really close to each other. But it's okay if they're in a different order, and it's okay if they have other words in the middle of criminal history record. So that will get more records, more results, than if you have the quotes around it. So it'll be a slightly broader search, a little bit more flexible. So that may or may not be what you want. So you have to make the call, and you can experiment it. You can try it with the quotes and without the quotes and see what the results are. The other option is to have it as all, saying it just has to have all three of these words. Now that could mean that they're anywhere in the bill. So for a phrase, that's usually not the appropriate choice. But if you're looking for a bill that is about two topics, but not necessarily that are going to be joined in the same sentence, then that's where you would use the all. So if I wanted to mention criminal history record, and I wanted to say expungement, and that's what I'm interested in, then I can have those two things in the contains all, but it's not necessarily going to be an exact phrase. The expungement might be in a separate section. I'm just talking in general about how this works. Michael, any comments about how to use all and quotes and phrases and the near and that whole shebang?
Outside of playing with it to make sure you're getting what you want to get, that I think you've hit all the topics. But play with it, make sure you're getting the bills that you need, and give us a call if you have any questions, because Karen and I both are very well versed in writing these and are happy to help.
Yeah, and you can change it and experiment with it and see which one seems to be getting you the right bills. Another note, we recently made a change so that if you say you change your query and you get no results back, and you're like, well, that's not what I want, and so you change your query back. We used to drop all of your hidden bills once they weren't relevant to you anymore. We no longer do that. So you actually can now experiment with impunity, and when you get your old query back, you'll still have the same hidden bills. So you're not going to be losing any work. A long time ago, we changed it so that we'll never drop your comments. So now we've changed it so that you will never drop your hidden bills. So any work you've done on this bill sheet will be preserved. So go ahead and experiment. See what happens when you add quotes. See what happens when you take them off. And see what gets you to the right answer. Now, I've got a question here about asterisks. So thank you for that, Lauren. If you would like to have criminal history record or records or recording, and you're not quite exactly sure what they're going to say or recorder, you can put an asterisk at the end, and that's a wild card. So that is a really nice way to extend your search without having to type out or even think of all the ways they might say it. So that can work really well for, pharmacy, pharmacological, or, all of that. Lots of words. You could think of lots of examples where it could have a number of different endings, and any one of them is good enough to make it relevant to you. So just backspace to where, the different endings will go and put an asterisk on there. And that will give you all of the different results. So now I'll get criminal history record or records. Now, key thing about the asterisk is it can only be at the end of a word. So it's not a true wildcard. You can't put it in the middle. You can't put it at the beginning. And that's even true of a phrase. It can only be at the end of the phrase. So usually it's different suffixes you want. So usually that's exactly what you want. But if you have something where you're not sure if it's going to have a hyphen in it, you need to actually put in both versions of it and actually type that all out. You can't just put the star in the middle and say, I don't know if it has a hyphen. So hopefully that made sense. Michael, any asterisk comments?
Just make sure you use them. I've had some people miss some things because they thought that they were using an asterisk and they weren't. So just make sure that they're in there.
Yeah, it sucks when the plurals kill you. Okay. Let's see. The other thing you can do is, you can X out bills if you've been using BillTrack50, and I assume you have if you're in our advanced webinar. So you can X bills out if you don't want them, and that's fine. But if you are overlapping an entire topic and you are looking at kind of medicine, but you never want veterinary or you never want the mental health version of that or whatever, you can use the none of box to knock out an entire topic. Another good way the none of box works is if you have two topics and bills can be in both of them, but you only want the bills on one bill sheet, then you can take the narrower bill sheet, build that first, so the one with the easier search terms, and then take all of those search terms and put them in the second one into the none of box. And that way you can create two bill sheets and then the bills will only appear on one of them. So hopefully that made sense. For example, if I've got this one about ban the box, and then I've got another one, like I said, about expungement, then I might go in and create a second bill sheet that says contains all expungement, and then put all of these words into the none of, so that I don't wind up with any of the bills from this bill sheet on my expungement bill sheet. And that can save me time in reviewing all of my bills. Now, it could be you've got two different clients looking at those bill sheets, and you do want the bills in both bill sheets. That's fine. But if you don't want them to overlap, the none of box is a great way to make that happen. Michael, have you used that at all?
Yes. So I work with a few of our customers who, excuse me, have a lot of overlapping issues. And so the contained none of really helps them to not have to look at a bill, 5 or 6 different times. So it's very helpful, especially if if you're trying to limit the number of times you're reading the same piece of legislation.
Yeah. Okay. So for my duck on a pond strategy, where you've got several narrow sheets, it can be a really nice strategy there, because you've got nice narrow words and you can just kind of keep knocking them out as you build additional sheets. You just keep rolling down and saying, all right, I've got my main one, I don't want those, and then your third bill sheet, you don't want anything from the first two, etc., so that you get ever dwindling results, because it's like a filter of mesh sizes for frac sand. Hopefully that oil and gas analogy worked for everybody. Okay, let's see. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the keywords column as a strategy for writing your queries as well. So I've got the keywords column turned on. If you don't have yours turned on, no problem. Go to your templates and turn on the keywords. So just edit your template and turn on the keywords. You can turn them back off after you're done with them. So these keywords are not our opinion of what these bills are about. This is actually IBM Watson, of all things. So we send all of the bills off to Watson. Watson reads them, tells us what the bills are about, and then gives us back the list of words. So, for example, this one is about criminal history record, applicant provider. It'll have a couple not useful words because, again, it's an algorithm, not a person. But it actually does a pretty good job, nationwide background check, of figuring out what phrases are important from this bill. What the point is, you can look in here and look for phrases you didn't know that your legislatures were using to describe your topic. So if you are getting started on a topic, if you can get in the ballpark, these keywords can give you language suggestions for other things you might want to add to your query. They also might suggest things you want to remove from your query. Obviously, keywords also give you a real quick look at if this bill is relevant to you, so you can find out immediately, well, I don't really need this massage therapist one, that's not the one I wanted, and just exit out. So it's a nice review tool, but mostly I like using it to brainstorm words. And as language can wander over time, or it can be referred to slightly different between the states, this can be a really nice way to just do a quick check that you've got all of the words that they might use. And for some areas, and you know who you are, that can matter a lot because they can change the words on you on purpose to hide from you. So this is a good way to kind of watch for new language, new phrases. Michael, can you think of any examples?
Not off the top of my head, but it is something that I use a lot because no state, well, states will sometimes use similar language, but states also like to use their own language. And so when you're doing multi-state tracking, it's good to keep an eye on what states use because you never know when model language will go from one state to another, and you can sometimes see where it's coming from that way. But it's a feature that I use a lot, and it's very helpful.
Yeah, and then once you've got your query written, you can turn the keywords back off if you're not looking at them, so they don't have to stay in your way. But when you're brainstorming, when you're working on a new topic that you're not that familiar with, or just as an occasional checkup if you're trying to look across the country, I like the keywords. So they're there for you to use when you need them. All right, so moving on, talking of the keyword column, I wanted to talk about our new column features. So to create a new column, we have changed how it works. So now there is the Manage Columns choice. So this is definitely an advanced topic, but I think it can be valuable. So I'm going to go to Manage Columns. And here's all of the standard company columns that we provide by default. And then we've got our custom ones here at the bottom. And I've given them names, so here's different names. And they're all different kinds of data types. So these are text columns. This one is a number. This one is a date. This one I added a link. And this one I made a drop down. So you can have different data types now, and you can actually create as many columns as you want. The reason we have the company columns listed here, the default ones that BillTrack50 will give you, is because you can actually edit these and change the column header text. So if you don't like our bill progress as a phrase, you can edit that and change it to something that makes more sense to you. Or if you don't like the word keywords, you can edit that and make it that makes more sense to you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make a column. Most of the data types are self-explanatory. Text is just free-form text. A number and a date, the reason we make those different is so that you can sort properly on numbers or dates. The link gives you two things to fill in. So if you make a column into a link, it'll ask you what you want the link to be and then what you want the label to be. And that way you can say, click here for analysis, and then have the link in there so it's like a normal link. Hopefully that made sense. And then the drop-down column. That's the most complicated one, so let me do that. So you can make a priority column, and then you can say high, medium, low. And now these three choices are going to be what is in my list. So you just type what you want and then hit enter, and that'll, so it can be, you know, several words, and that will create your list. And you can come back to the column, Manage Columns, edit this, and change this list at any time. So you can add and remove items as you're using the list. This can be really nice if you are going to post this on your website and you are going to show these categories. That way, if people sort, everything is in the right order and everything is spelled the same. Or if you're going to have multiple people using a bill sheet and trying to keep the information in there, that way they'll all use the same phrases and they'll all pick, all the reasons why you would want to set up a drop-down list. I'm not actually going to make this one, but you get the idea. Then once you have these, they're going to be available to you in your template. So let me edit one of my templates here. So we've got all of the standard BillTrack50 ones that you can pick from, and then any of your custom ones are going to be listed at the bottom. So after you've added your column, come to your template and look at the bottom, and that's where the things you've created are going to be. So here they all are, and I can turn any of them on. You may or may not have noticed that you can pick these up and change the order of them, so you can definitely put that in any order you want. And then this width lets you change how wide your columns are. So that may or may not matter to you so much on the bill sheet, but if you decide to create a stakeholder page so that you can put the entire bill sheet grid on your website, it could be you're trying to fit it into a specific size and you want the columns to all fit. You can come here and play with the width until it looks exactly like you want. So we give you complete control over how it's going to look, what order your columns are, which columns you even use, and then you even get to control how wide they are. So even though it's here and it takes up space, for some reason it's hard to notice that there's a width column here. But there is, and you can modify the width of your column in your bill sheet. All right. Michael, any thoughts about templates before I move on?
You mentioned being able to add a link. One really great thing about being able to add links is a lot of the grassroots programs have a link to your take action piece, so you can now easily integrate your grassroots and your tracking. If you have a stakeholder page or the map widget, you can guide people right from those sites to your take action, and so that's a great piece that link, the link function has allowed us to do.
I've also had customers recently set up the link to go to the official state PDF, which is nice, especially if they're dealing with managers who are used to reading the official version of it, like how it normally looks. So that's another thing you can link in there is the official PDF of the bill. So yeah, you can link off to your call to action, your own web page, your own analysis, your own PDF, or even like the PDF of the bill. All right, so those are some good uses of the template and of a few of the columns. Since we're in the template, I already talked about keywords and how I like keywords. Bill progress is another one that that you don't have turned on by default, but is a good column. And let me show you how you might use bill progress. And of course, I picked a bill sheet that doesn't have bill progress on it. All right, so what am I using here? Default standard. So I'm going to go to default standard and add bill progress. Click. Save that. Okay, so now I have my bill progress. This is the same graphic you get on a bill that shows you how far it's gone through the process. What's nice about it is two things. This number in front lets you sort so you can see what is in each category, so you can quickly get to what's been passed or signed or what's just in review. You can also filter using that. So I can open my filter here and say, just give me things in status 3 and get right to things that I've crossed over but haven't passed yet. So bill progress can be nice for you to sort and filter and figure out what bills are in each category. Another handy thing about bill progress is if you are publishing this to your website and your readers aren't that sophisticated, then the last action might actually be a little bit intimidating. You can For your website, you can choose not to show the last action and just to show the bill progress, and that makes it much simpler and more friendly and easy to interpret for any readers who are maybe less sophisticated. So depending on your audience, last action might be appropriate or bill progress might be more appropriate. So that's another place where you might use the bill progress. So the keywords and the bill progress are two columns you might want to experiment with on your templates to see if they're handy, and bill progress especially for your stakeholder page template. Okay, then we have a couple new widget customization features that you might not have noticed. So first, on your bill list, this guy, you actually can now say whether or not you support or oppose a bill, and then highlight, and it'll put a little red and green bar down the side to show which bills that you support or oppose. So let's take this Alabama bill. I bet I don't have position in here either. Let's turn on, so to use that feature, of course, you have to have the position turned on so that we know if you support or oppose it. Us guessing would not work out. So we've got position, and I'll turn that on. Great. Okay, back in here. Okay, and so this Alabama bill, now I can set the position. I just double click and say that I support this bill, or maybe I strongly support this bill. Let's save that. And then I'm going to take this one and I'm going to oppose this bill. Great. So then now when I go to my widgets, I can say show the position. I can test that to see what it looks like. So that's the red bar, that's the green bar. So it'll just color code. And anything, if you say monitor, it'll be gray. If you don't give it a position, it just leaves it alone like this. So that's a way you can highlight it. And of course, you can use the red and green to indicate something different and just explain on your website what the colors are. And there's a lighter green for support and that darker green for strong support. There's an orange for oppose, and then this strong red for strongly oppose. So you've got several different color options to work with, and you can make them mean whatever you want. But if you don't explain it, then people will assume that green is good and red is bad. So that is a customization thing you can do to communicate a little more information. You've got to add the position column, and then wherever you set your position, they'll show up, assuming you turn your position indicator on. Another thing I want to point out is when you say generate script, this is what you paste into your website. There are a number of options here that are actually not available to you in this on the screen. So these are kind of the advanced options. You can change the font size, you can change the colors. So there's additional things in here you can change if you want to make it better fit with your website. You can also enter in the numbers directly. So I want to highlight for you that you've got these different things you can change. Also, if you have an existing widget and you don't want to bother coming back in here, you can just paste show position true in there if you want to turn on that position thing. You can also create your widget to be just for one state, which you can do from this screen, or this filter will work obviously with several states, so you can make this just a region. So it's highly customizable inside the script itself. So if our options aren't enough, then I encourage you to come in and see what all your options are in the actual script. The other customization thing we added is on the map, we now let you set your colors for the range on the map. So if your website is more of a blue website, then you can set your colors to be blue, and then it'll look better on your website. So again, you can put the numbers in directly if you know them, or you can just play with a little color wheel like I did until it looks about how you want it. Another tip here is the width. You can express as a percentage, or you can give it a number. So it's up to you whether you want it to be a percentage, and that also works. You can put a percentage into your bill list as well, and that way it will be responsive. So if you expect people to be using your website on a phone or on a pad or maybe on a computer, you can just make it the percentage you want, and then that way it'll resize itself as appropriate as your page resizes. Or you can set it to a specific size. So if you have a specific thing you're trying to do, you can make it a specific size. So both of those are available to you as well. Okay. Anything about widgets, Michael?
No, but I learned that you could make your widgets regional just now. So
Yes. So if you have one bill sheet that covers all of the states, you can use that one bill sheet to turn it into 5 different regions and not have to create 5 different bill sheets. So you can just narrow it down right in the widget code. You can use one bill sheet and explode it into 50 different widgets. So if you have a different page for every state, you can drive that all from the same bill sheet. Just edit the region right there in the widget code. As far as mapping anything smaller than a state, I've got a question coming in. No, you can only map the state. We do have district maps, but those are in the scorecards. So I'll get to the scorecards here in a minute. This map, unfortunately, is just going to be for the state. And that's, I suppose that's just how this is. So the map is really for a multi-state situation. So if you're in a single state, it makes a lot of sense to just use the list. Okay. Going on to the scorecard options. So there's several advanced scorecard options, and this is going to be our last topic, and that'll be where we wrap up. When you go into a scorecard, so let's get into there. Let's go into one that I've got. Okay. We have a new feature called sponsor rating. So you can now assign people bonus points or extra negative points for having sponsored a bill. So if there's a bill you like, you can give them bonus points for sponsoring it. If there's a bill you hate, you can take away points because they sponsored it. So that's a way, especially if your bills don't usually come up for vote, that you can at least still assign people some responsibility for having sponsored those bills. So that is just right when you're editing. Also, sorry, so the bill rating and then the sponsor rating. So that's what you can set up, and they don't have to be the same. So you can give them just 1 point or even go 10 points if it's really, you really want to reward them for having sponsored a bill. Okay, and down, if you scroll down into the votes section, all of the votes are listed at the bottom. And you actually have complete control over which votes get counted in as the score. So we just count the last vote in each chamber. So in this case, the third reading from the House and the third reading from the Senate. So if people voted yes or no, that's the points they got. But you can also add in votes from the committee votes if you want to. So if you don't like this vote, you can exclude it and say that was shenanigans, I don't want to count it. And then we will default down to the last, this next last one. Or you can say, I want to include this vote. On top of these, I'm going to give extra points to people in the committee and then give it a rating. So if you don't fill in the rating, it'll default to whatever your standard rating is, but you can give it an override rating. So if a committee is actually voting to kill a bill, you might want to give it the opposite rating. So you actually have complete control over the points you assign to the committees as well. So you can come into the votes and make this exactly what you want it to be. For federal bills where they're voting on specific amendments, you can go through and score each individual amendment. For some states, we don't have the committee votes. For most states, we do. It depends on how they're published on the website. So if you come in here and you don't see committee votes, then you can ask us and see if it's something we can get, if it's something we just haven't gotten to yet. But probably it's because they're published in a weird way by your state. But maybe not. So we can always look into that for you. So again, you may or may not see your committee votes. Hopefully you will. But for a few states, we don't have the actual committee votes, unfortunately. But yeah, contact me. Okay. Next up, categories. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this. On the Manage tab for your scorecard, you can add categories. So here I've added air quality or water quality as possible categories for my bills. And this works the same way. You just enter what you want, enter, type what you want, enter, and you'll get all of your categories. Once those are set up, then you have them available to you as choices in your categories. And you can pick one or more categories. A bill can certainly be in more than one category. Once you've done that, go ahead and save that. Let's say this one was air. Of course, I have no idea, but save that. Okay, now, as soon as you add categories, you get this magic drop-down box, and it will let you actually narrow down and look at the scores just for the bills in that category. So that's nice, and that lets you get right into the categories you want. Also, if you click on a specific legislator, it'll break down their vote in the different categories so you can see where their votes came from. The great thing about this little scorecard here, and why you might want to use a scorecard even if you don't need to show it to anybody, it might just be a good tool for you, is if you create one of these scorecards, you can say, you know, do it from my bill sheet, just load those bills up. It takes 3 clicks. You've got your scorecard. Then when you look at a legislator, we'll show you how they voted on your specific bills. So if you're about to meet with somebody and you're talking to them about one bill, you can, with just 5 clicks, familiarize yourself with how they voted on every one of your bills, just so you know, before you start talking to them, how they stood across the board. So you can see their score, but you can also see bill by bill what they did. So this is great, especially if you're like on your phone and you just are trying to do this real quick. If you've got a scorecard set up, you can just click on their name, see how they voted on your specific issues. So that can be pretty handy. And of course, then you can click on the bill and go see what that bill was about. So, alrighty. Those are kind of some secrets about scorecards. So that was what I wanted to cover today. Michael, do you have anything I missed that you wanted to talk about?
Just one thing on scorecards. While they are a great advocacy tool, I know as someone who managed a PAC, it's, you know, our PAC members always wanted information. One, you know, why was the PAC giving to specific members, and this scorecard tool would be a great way to say, hey, look, this person supports us. This is why the PAC is supporting this person. Also a great tool because most PACs have websites and newsletters that need content, and the scorecard is a great way to provide that content in a very easy, clean, interactive way.
Yep, and fresh all the time, updated every day. So something to keep coming back to. So yeah, it's a nice thing to drive engagement for an employee PAC, or you know, if you are an issue-based nonprofit and you're just trying to inform people who's helping your agenda. Yeah, it's a good, interactive, engaging way to do that. But also, if you just want a tool for yourself to remind yourself how somebody voted or how they did overall, handy for that too. All right, any questions from any attendees? Anybody listening have anything they want to talk about? Okay, looks like I need to go get some committee votes in some states. I will do that. I will research that and get back to you. I'm sorry I don't have them in your state yet, but we will see what we can do. All right, so thank you for coming. I hope that you found a couple tips in here helpful. And obviously, contact me anytime if you have questions. I'm Karen at Legination, and you can reach Michael if you need help writing a query, or if you just want to understand what some certain bill is doing, you can write to Michael at legination.com, and he can help you understand the actual life of a bill. He's your guy there. All right, so thanks very much. Great to have you. Appreciate your attendance, and we will hopefully hear from you soon. Bye-bye. Say bye, Michael.
Bye.
Bye.